Of course, there was nothing else for me to do but to invite him out. I thought you wouldn't mind." In Dicky's tone there was a doubtful inflection which I read correctly. He knew of my interest in the elderly man of mystery who had known my parents so well, and I was sure that he thought I would be overjoyed because he had extended the invitation. I was glad that I could honestly disabuse his mind of this idea, for I had a curious little feeling that Dicky disliked more than he appeared to do the attentions paid to me by Mr. Gordon. It was less than an hour before the taxi bearing the first of our guests swung into the driveway and Lillian and Harry Underwood stepped out. Lillian's head and face were so swathed in veils that I did not realize what the change in her appearance, of which she had warned me, was, until I was alone with her in my room, which I intended giving up to her and her husband while they stayed. Then, as she took off her hat and veils, I almost cried out in astonishment, for at my first unaccustomed glance, instead of the rouged and powdered face and dyed hair, which to me had been the only unpleasant things about Lillian Underwood, the face of an old woman looked at me, and the hair above it was gray. There were the remnants of great youthful beauty in Lillian's face. Nay, more, there were wonderful possibilities when the present crisis in her life, whatever it might be, should have passed. But the effect of the change in her was staggering. "Awful, isn't it?" she said, coming up to me. "No, don't lie to me," as she saw a confused, merciful denial rise to my lips. "There are mirrors everywhere, you know. There's one comfort, I can't possibly ever look any worse than I do now, and when my hair gets over the effect of its long years of dyeing, and my present emotional crisis becomes less tense, I probably shall not be such a fright. But oh, my dear, how glad I am to be with you. I need you so much just now." She put her head on my shoulder as a homesick child might have done, and I felt her draw 2 or 3 long, shuddering breaths, the dry sobs which take the place of tears in the rare moments when Lillian Underwood gives way to emotion. I stroked her hair with tender, pitiful fingers, noticing as I did so what ravages her foolish treatment of her hair had made in tresses that must once have been beautiful. Originally of the blonde tint she had tried to preserve, her locks were now an ugly mixture of dull drab and gray. As I stood looking down at the head pillowed against my shoulder, I realized what this transformation in Lillian must mean to Harry Underwood. He it was who had always insisted that she follow the example of the gay bohemian crowd of which he was a leader, and disguise her fleeting youth with dye and rouge. It was to please him, or, as she once expressed it to me, to play the game fairly with Harry, that she outraged her own instincts, her sense of what was decent and becoming, and constantly made up her face into a mask like that of a woman of the half world. No one could deny that it disguised her real age, but her best friends, including Dicky and myself, had always felt that the real, mature beauty of the woman was being hidden. "Of course, this is terribly rough on Harry," Lillian said at last, raising her head from my shoulder, and speaking in as ordinary and unruffled a tone as if she had not just gone through what in any other woman would have been a hysterical burst of tears. "It really isn't fair to him, and under any other conditions in the world I would not do it. He's pretty well cut up about it, so much so that he cannot always control his annoyance when he is speaking about it. But I know you will overlook any little outbreaks of his, won't you? He wanted to come down here with me. You know he's always anxious to see you, or I would have run away by myself." Her tone was anxious, wistful, and my heart ached for her. I could guess that when Harry Underwood could not control his annoyance, he could be very horrid indeed. but I winced at her casual remark that her husband was always anxious to see me. Harry Underwood, held in restraint by his very real admiration for his brilliant wife, had been annoying enough to me. I did not care to think what he might be when enraged at her as I knew he must be now. Nothing of my feeling, however, must I betray to the friend who had come to me for help and comfort. I drew closer the arms that had not yet released her. "Dear girl," I said softly, "don't worry any more about your husband or anything else. Just consider that you've come home to your sister. I'm going to keep you a while now I've got you, and we'll straighten everything out. Don't even bother to tell me anything about it until you are fully rested. I can see you've been under some great strain." "No one can ever realize how great," she returned. "You see—" What revelation she meant to make to me I did not then learn, for just at that moment a knock sounded on the door, and in answer to my "Come in," Katie appeared and announced the arrival of the Durkees and Richard Gordon. Chapter 38